NLC President Joe Ajari by operatives of the Department of State Services, DSS. We also saw that the SARAP seemed to have witnessed something similar with their office occupied also yesterday. But that's not all. We're also going to look at the issue plaguing the Labour Party as well as the price of petrol that have been increased. The TUC President Festus Osifu saying that perhaps if the price is not reviewed downwards, there's a possibility of having a meeting, his words. Where that meeting would lead to, we're not too certain. Joining me to have this conversation is the TUC Chairman, Uyo, Comrade Dominic Abang, joining us from Lagos. Thank you for being on Political Spectrum this morning. Okay, I could barely make out what you were saying, but if you could hear me, good to have you once again. We also have, oh good, great, I can hear you loud and clear. We also have in our studio Itowo George Ibe Basi. He's a lawyer, legal practitioner, and an author. Welcome to Political Spectrum and Spectrum Television. Good to have you. You're welcome. You're welcome. So, gentlemen, first of all, let's start with Comrade Dominic. I know you are in something took you to Lagos, but generally, how's the weather there? How's Lagos, and how's the atmosphere?
Well, can you hear me?
Clearly, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, Lagos is good today. It's a bit stormy. Everything is calm. People are going about their businesses. Though people are also complaining that the impact of the fuel increase rise, and if you look at the routes, actually you have very few cars. Most of them are queuing up at the filling station, and some are just at home. I believe it is the impact that cuts across the economy and is hitting everybody hard.
Who would have known that perhaps the best traffic control in Nigeria is the high price of PMS? Who would have thought that? Especially in Lagos.
You can say that again, just like the COVID-19 that imposed a global holiday to everybody.
Now let's dive into it. One of the issues plaguing that seemed to have raised tension some was the arrest of the NLC President, Joe Ajari, with regards to, he was about to travel to the UK to attend a TUC meeting. But thankfully, he's been released. What do you have to say about all that played out the way it did?
Well, we've noticed a trend, and we noticed that all over the world, labor leaders are kind of being viewed not as partners, which they actually are, but as opposition to government policies. When it comes to when a government that has started giving out popular policies and begin to be very passionate, begin to be driving energy towards those unpopular policies, the question is, would they really realize at what point that their passion, their energy put into their policies will become damaging and actually dangerous for the people around it. And once you see leaders, labor leaders that begins to speak against these policies that are very impacting and very crucially affecting the population, it is usual for government to begin to see them as opposition. I think this is what is playing out in the Tinubu's administration, coming up with so many unpopular policies ranging from the exchange rate, the fuel subsidy removal, and most of the issues on taxation, increasing VAT, and they're planning to increase VAT again to 10%. These are very unpopular policies that is hitting hard on the populace, especially in Nigerian economy that is very less in production, but more in exporting, importing. So this is where we are facing, and that is what is coming up.
Well, thank you, Dominic. You heard Comrade Dominic talking about some of the things that perhaps led to the detention of the Labour president. Did the DSS carry out due diligence? Were they in the right about the manner in which they conducted that arrest, detention, and interrogation of Joe Ejari? Don't forget that he had some appearance scheduled with the Nigerian police, which he, through his lawyer, requested that it be moved forward to some later date.
Well, first and foremost, I would say yes, and I'll also say no. Yes, in the sense that anybody can be picked up. Nobody is above the law. That notwithstanding, the manner in which they classified, I will call it classified in the sense that because up to now no one knows the nitty-gritty involved in what led to that arrest. No one knows what may have transpired inside when the man was interrogated, if at all he was interrogated.
They came out to say that he had questions to answer with regards to that story that, remember the NLC secretary was raided, and then they charged him of financing terrorism with regards to the Briton who they accused of being the mastermind of trying to overthrow President Tinubu. So they are trying to. This issue is related, and the Labour president had an appearance, which through his lawyer he was able to communicate with the Nigerian police to say, look, we can't be on that date because of this. I'm guessing because of the TUC conference that he had to attend. Let's shift it to a later date. So that perhaps may have been what the DSS was acting upon, but the manner in which they went about it.
You don't arrest first and go into fact finding on a further investigation. You do your thorough fact find. What was the basis of the information they got? How was it linked? These are what we call the nitty-gritties or the condition precedent to you arresting someone. For you to arrest, not by invitation, that means there is a green light against the person, that he must have had one or two dealings to do. And there is a convincing fact to that effect. So you don't just arrest and before you go into fact-finding. You put your checks on ground first before you proceed. You don't arrest first and later. Even the arrest, now that he has been released, the DSS, have they come out to the public that this and these and these are what has been achieved?
Well,
as a result of that arrest has led to, as a result of that arrest has led to the young man's, he has lost so much.
The conference he was supposed to attend.
He has lost so much.
And not just him, perhaps Nigeria.
And likewise the convoy he needed to go with. Yeah. And now what happens to that conference day? What happens to the seat? What happens to our own, what happens to the populace? Because he is representing the labor masses. Yes. So what happens to the presentation he was supposed to go and put up there? That means we are cut out completely. And of course he could lead to, in fact there's a possibility that of course what he needed to go and do there would have been so much against the federal government, if I must say so.
We don't know that.
Then this person in question had been in Nigeria, and as a Nigerian citizen, a respectable one at that, in quotes, being the head of all the labor masses in this country. He is not, there has never been any traces to the fact that he was being looked for and he was not found. You can trace him. If you cannot trace him to his house, you can trace him to his office. If you cannot trace him to his office, you can trace him to the church. If you cannot trace him to the church, this is someone that no news, there is no publication of him not being looked for and was not found. So why that manner of arrest?
Dominic, let's get back to you. Just listening to Barrister here talking about what was playing out and perhaps what was behind the DSS invitation. But this is not necessarily new. It seems as if Nigerian government after Nigerian government have embarked on this particular route. Call it even Buhari, during even Goodluck, Jonathan, Obasanjo, Abacha, as far back as we can go. Even when we had the NSO, the Nigerian Security Organization, that's organization that gave birth to today's DSS, or then SSS before it became DSS. So the Nigerian government has utilized this method, so to speak. But on the other side, you cannot also argue, I would say, that when it comes to things like state security, they're coming out and lining up all of the interrogation questions and the intentions, perhaps, of the interrogators would be counterproductive to those who are on the side of the state security.
Thank you. Thank you once again. I agree with the barrister in the studio. You see, one thing about Nigeria is that we will never learn. We have been using traditional tactics, and we have not educated ourselves with even modern investigation tools. The world has moved away from. What is wrong in the first instance when the police carried out that investigation? If it is going to be a multi-security organization investigation, why can't they interconnect at that point and do the interrogation? If that is not the case, once he had finished the first interrogation, DSS could have come up and make a statement. Even government could have made a statement.
Fair point.
We understand there is an issue like this. And for the purpose of continuing to track this investigation, we have given an advice or instructions that this leader shouldn't leave the country at this period so that it will help us in carrying out this investigation and conclude it timely. That way, the Nigerian populace, even the leaders and everybody is aware of that communication. So inviting anybody at that point, based on that pre-foundation of that information, wouldn't be a surprise. It will not cause any apprehension in the system. It will not cause any tension. But we have not learned of modern tactics of interrogation or even investigation. And that's why we wake up in the morning. What the barrister has also alluded to, we have also contemplated on that fact. Perhaps it is not even the investigation. It is based on the fact that they have seen this traveling arm, this itinerary, as a point of exposing most of these bad policies at the global level, in speaking to a conference like that. And in order to stop that movement, they have initiated under the cover of that investigation. That is exactly what is happening. But then they have to know that whatever is happening, whatever that is happening in Nigeria today, it's not just Nigeria. The whole is a global place. It's a small village now. Whether I go to speak to you in the conference or not, the people in that conference, they are already aware of the policies that are being rolled out in Nigeria and the impact on the populace.
Fully,
so I think the
comrade, following up on that, so what do you think would be the impact of perhaps this first poor, this wrong move, one would say, on the part of the Nigerian government? What do you think would be the impact on both the image of the government as well as generally Nigeria as a whole?
Is continuously eroding confidence, continuously eroding integrity of the government, and making this relationship with labor and government become very heightened. There is no sincere move of the government that is going to be trusted. There is no sincere move of the government that is going to be believed by both labor and even the general public, because it is not open, it is not sincere. That is, they are building up a situation that everybody will just have a loss of confidence in the government. No matter what you do, as it is now, for example, the fuel subsidy issue, you have said fuel subsidy has been removed, but I can tell you as we speak today, fuel subsidy is being paid. But you continue to deceive Nigerians for something that has not been budgeted for. Where are you getting the resources to pay for it? That means there is an item of the budget that is being blackmailed to another item, but it's using that to pay for subsidies.
Comrade, I'm going to come back to that point. But let me allow Barrister Towo to comment on some of the things that you raised. He was talking about perhaps it wasn't even an issue of competence. He started out talking about how the Nigerian police is using archaic methods of investigation and saying perhaps it doesn't even have to do with the competence or the capacity, so to speak. Perhaps it was the intent, which would, in his opinion, would be to stop Joe Ajare from making certain comments about what Nigeria is going through and the policy direction of the government at the international stage. What do you think about that?
Well, let's get to some relevant provisions of the administration of criminal justice law. First and foremost, for you to volunteer, or for the security agency, in this case DSS, to obtain statement from, or obtain, or he volunteered, whichever is the case. I was not there, so I would not know which one applied. There must be a provision on video. That statement, that is what a lot of people do not know. So now, automatically, he is entitled to it as his basic right. Now, as at the time the interrogation, or when he volunteered his statement, or his statement was obtained from him, was there a video of that nature? And if yes, where is it?
We do know that he didn't go there alone. He went there with Falana, his legal representative.
That was with the police.
Okay, you mean with the DSS
That was
now?
with the police.
Okay.
But before I travel to the DSS journey, let me get to the police first.
Okay.
Now, as of today, as unfortunate as the system may be, even in the court today, you hardly see one video, one mandatory
video
evidence to that effect. You would hardly see that provision that has been fulfilled. Nothing has been done about it. And meanwhile, these things are there in our laws. And who is the one to implement them? They have these bodies that should implement it. Unfortunately, fine, the police, they need to protect lives and property by virtue of Section 4 of the Police Act 2020. But now, in the course of protecting rights, are you doing what you are supposed to do?
The right way.
In some instances, I wouldn't say police in quotes, because there are some that I've dealt with, and I can vouch for them that these ones are very, very okay. But there are some that would go out of their way in trying to make sure that, they are not up to date intentionally. Because there are some that would deliberately decide not to be up to date with the tenets and the 21st century procedures of investigation. Investigation involves from the time you get the information up to when the person is arraigned or is discharged, based on the fact that there is nothing, no prima facie case has been leveled or investigation has been leveled against him. So these are procedures. Now, unfortunately, what they do is just to arrest, keep. Unfortunately, if you don't have money to pay for your bail, they could frame up some charges. Some could frame up, not all of course, some would frame up some charges against the suspect, and well, with a remand order which has just been injected into the system, a remand order, and the person will be remanded for an offense that the lower court, which is the magistrate court, do not have powers to. So, unfortunately, this provision was there. As at the time it was inserted into that law, there was a reason why it was inserted into that law, so that people are not languished in prison because, they cannot be taken to court, which is the magistrate court. So now, fast forward to the Femi Falana SAN went with the NLC president and came out. When they came out, they categorically told the public that they've gone and they are out. In summary, there is nothing outside that can be taken away from that statement as to why he went and why he was invited And what transpired there and why he came out, when next would the visit be, no one is aware of it.
Anyway,
so now,
there was, to that effect, the police had said he had issues to answer with regards to the British, what's his name, the British man who was suspected and accused of trying to create a coup against President Bola Tinubu, which the man had long denied. And the police says he has a link. It's been traced that he had some shop at the Labour Congress, which Joe Ajaro agreed to that. This man had some presence here, but I don't have any relationship whatsoever with him. So you can't say he didn't have any case.
You don't make a compound statement.
Okay.
In investigation, in as much as you have to hold some things for purposes of, because investigation, you will not expose everything so that you don't jeopardize what you are doing. But you don't make a compound statement of an individual of that nature. Because you may have it in the right way. Unfortunately, the way you went about it by compounding some things, people will read meanings to it. If this thing is the way it is, you should put it the way it is. If it is as short and attractive as a short skirt, a lady wearing a short skirt, you should make it the way it is. People should see it the way it is, because it involves an individual who, at the present state of the nation, is seen to be an antagonist of the present government, having pressed on so many issues, even though he may not get it the way it ought to have been. But now he has been able to press and press and press and press. Whatsoever thing may have transpired, fine. Now, the young man in question has admitted, fine, this young man came here, but personally, I do not have any link to do with him. Now, what happens with the DSS? These things have been happening far back when Adams Oshomole, now senator, was the NLC president until date. It has been going on.
Even before him.
So now, where are we headed to? We are headed to the same place, which is the ballot. Because that is where everything begins and that is where everything ends. In Nigeria today, unfortunately, as we speak, this is 2024. By 2027, the general elections is coming up. Before 2027 is 2026, which will be the primaries. As at 2024, the National Assembly has not still deemed it fit to make some strict and consequential amendment to the Electoral Act. And what do we now get by 2026? Maybe that second or third quarter of the year in 2020, that is when they will rush to do these things. And at the end of the day, people are affected. The people that are affected are at the tribunal, for those of us who were there. So now, these things ought to have been in place prior. You set your, what do you call it, in economics. I wasn't so good in economics.
Scale of preference.
You set your scale of preference. What are you looking at? Is it the national assembly? Is it the national anthem you are looking at? What else are you supposed to set on the scale of preference? As a few months ago, the bill for a few weeks ago, that bill was passed to law. As at the time that bill was passed to law up to date, in respect of the minimum wage, how many states have implemented this? What have you deemed fit to do towards implementing this? And now, unfortunately, it has taken a lengthy time for these things to be implemented, specifically the minimum wage. But now, just within 1 hour or less than an hour, the fuel price has gone up.
Now, let me get Comrade Dominic on this. You alluded to it. Seems as if when someone seems to speak on the side of the masses against some of these policies that are problematic, particularly in its implementation, the person is deemed enemy of the state. Only a few days ago, President Bola Tinubu finally made a statement with regards to the increase in the price of fuel and said it was natural and normal as one of the pains that one would need to go through to be able to arrive at, Mike using colorful words now, El Dorado. Particularly, he made reference to what he saw in China, perhaps trying to implement it through austerity in his, in his policy fabrication. But this issue of branding people enemy of the state, because when someone is the DSS is after somebody, you have to be an enemy of the state. Is dissent or raising an opinion or protesting against policies by government, first of all, I'm going to ask, is it illegal? Which I know it's not, but I want to take your point. And secondly, which other means would the Nigerian state, in your estimation, prefer to have the grievances of the people and, say, organizations like yours, the TUC, use to communicate its stance on national issues?
Okay, thank you once again. You see, there is actually no means that has not been employed. It's just that we have a recalcitrant administration.
Strong words there.
We have done dialogue, we've done communication, we've aired our view by writing. I mean, before you get to the table, you must first of all stand out for those issues that you think are burning issues and issues of consideration, calling for dialogue. And all these means have been passed through before you get to see that. Again, with due respect to our president, I mean for the office we respect it. When you go out and make policies and make statements as you did during the visit with China, the next question we need to ask ourselves is, which policy will you implement without having a policy framework and alternative in order to cushion the effect of the impact of that policy? I have not seen any nations that will come up with a policy and then you don't have a backcasting. That is how we call it. Backcasting, in the sense that you do a risk analysis, you assess the impact, and then you find alternatives to that impact.
But the government is saying that they have palliatives and some economic measures, and they've also sent some of the monies that are accrued from subsidy to the state governments, which is also supposed to, allow the people at their level to experience some of this.
Let me quickly ask, what is palliative? In the common sense of a layman in the street or even a high office holder in Nigeria, when you say palliative, that is alluded to food, right? It's alluded to making food available for people that are hungry. Now let's take sector by sector. If the aspect of food, in terms of your bad inflation policy, is palliative, what about transport sector? What have we done? What is the palliative in the transport sector? And you know, transportation cuts across every expenditure of the household. You go to the hospital, you use transportation. You go to the market, you use transportation. You go to school, you use transportation. I mean, it is one variable, one element that cuts across. So what palliative have we put in place in terms of transportation? If you're talking about your palliative in terms of minimum wage, which you have been able to give to a section of the population, which is very minimal, and those are the workers. What have you done with all our grandmothers, our grandfathers, and our parents who are moving from one place to another within the villages and within the town? You see, the holistic issue here is when you are implementing a policy, especially a new policy, you have to define the framework of that policy and put in place mitigation. Somebody, when the president comes up on day one of being sworn in as a president, a few hours before that time, he wasn't the president. So he became a president in minutes and he makes pronouncement without a policy framework to mitigate the impact of this. And right from that day, the spiraling effect of that impact is going on today, hitting on every day.
Well, corporate.
You look at in terms of exchange rate. Which country is doing a floating system without a managed system? And as you go, the investors, which you are expecting to come into the country, cannot even plan, even the domestic investors, because the fluctuation keeps on going every day.
Comrade, let me pick you.
Administration is that the administration does not have a backup framework that can mitigate what is going on in the country. And that is why when people speak against it, those people who may have proper suggestions are being seen as anti-government.
Comrade, let me pick you up on those points. You've raised quite some hair-raising points there. Of course, one of the hallmark of this administration, they would say one of the things they are trying to do is to replace petrol with CNG buses, and a few buses have been commissioned, and I don't know the effect that has on a population of Nigeria, like 220 million people. I don't know how far that has gone, and like you rightly put, these are measures that should have been put in place before the policy were rolled in. In fact, every other political aspirant mentioned as a tenet, a central tenet of their administration, that they would revoke subsidy, but most of them argued for phased removal. But let's quickly jump in to the issue that you've raised. TUC President Alex Isufu had, in a televised interview yesterday, had raised the issue of perhaps if we could bring reintroduce some measure of a controlled exchange rate with regards to issues like PMS, perhaps 1,000 naira to $1 as opposed to 1,600 plus that it is today, that would have a mitigating effect on the price of petrol, perhaps reducing it to 600 naira. What's your take on that?
You see, like the normally said, I have due respect to the governor of the central bank.
No, that was the president of a trade unions congress.
No, I'm coming.
Okay.
I have new respect for the governor of the central bank for trying to do something. But again, I said it earlier, the policy of floating the exchange rate is a dangerous policy. What most nations, in fact, majority of the nation do, is what is called the combination of the two, managed floated regime. This helps. As of today, even the importers of petroleum cannot really say this is the price that they are going to do. And that is why you're having challenges with the Dangote refinery and NLC. So if we are able to manage some parts of the regime in order to stabilize form a regime, a range in which this fluctuates around, it will give an investor a pre-planned, a pre-scheduled mentality in order to be able to plan his investment, plan his purchases, plan his supplies. That is what we are talking about today. If the government came in from day one, let me tell you what they are trying to do. The major thing in the mind of the central bank today is to control inflation. And you can see what they are doing by raising the interest rates. But that one in itself is deterring the investors from coming in. Because you cannot continue to produce and then you're not making values. So we need a system that can manage the fluctuation, bring in a fixed rate that can within some band in order to encourage people from investing. That is what I'm saying. On the CNG issues, you can see that government is very good in disinformation.
Strong language there.
The first thing they do is to say to the public that, look, in removing this, we are going to do it. And that is the CNG one. Where are we today? The back end of that is, if you have the fuel subsidy to be removed, and the next thing you want to do is to flood our system with CNG buses, then you could have also planned on the gas infrastructure upon which most of these buses will be filled.
Comrade, I have to hold you, stop you there because we are almost out of time. Let me allow Barrister Itowo to have a word before I come back to you briefly. Let's just move away from the petrol issue. You were raising constitutional issues as one of the issues that we are facing at the National Assembly and political parties generally. But just let me steer you briefly, just comment on what's playing out at the Labour Party, where the Julius Aburi-led segment of the party is at odds with the Peter Obi segment. And all of this is playing out. What is their own political party constitution saying about what's going on?
Well, first and foremost, I am not a member of the Labour Party, first. Secondly, notwithstanding that fact, that issue had been laid to rest by the Supreme Court. Unfortunately, Nigeria is doing the part of the state of lawlessness, and it is not helping us either. I can remember when I filed a matter against the vehicle inspection officers in Akwa Ibom State. That was far back in 2021, and so much was said about that matter. And today, a lot of more than 50 million people are benefiting from it. And I wasn't perturbed when I did that. I knew I needed to do it because I was affected. Now, it is only he who wears the shoes that knows where it pinches. The two parties, the two factional parties, they know why they are fighting. And having known why they are fighting, they are in the best position to tell the people why they are fighting. All of this is because of 2027 elections. But where are we? Can someone stand in the road of the truth? You cannot freeze the truth, no matter how it is. Once the truth is there, it is there. You cannot force it, no matter how small a drop of oil may be in a river, it will still float. So the truth would always remain the truth. Unfortunately, that is a division in their party which has really wrecked their party. Unfortunately, they have to travel the long route again from the Federal High Court back again because they have filed another matter at the Federal High Court, notwithstanding the fact that that issue had been laid to rest at the Supreme Court. So that being the case, what do you call it?
The caretaker committee.
The caretaker committee on ground and all of those issues are not helping that political party. Because you need to be together to be able to fight. And if you are divided, then that means you are inviting a third party to come in your midst. Wow. So fast forward to where we were, just to put a touch on what the TUC chairman.
We're actually out of time.
Okay.
We're out of time.
Right.
Before I let you go, the TUC president had said that if the price of fuel is not reviewed, the TUC will go on a meeting. Can you preempt, just in 30 seconds, preempt what that meeting would come out with?
Yeah, the meeting will consider the options available to us. The meeting will look at the impact. The meeting will look at the burning issue, and then the meeting will come up with a resolution. And that resolution is a 50-50. It could go either way.
Either way, what do you mean? What do you mean by 50-50? Are we seeing another strike?
The NEC is made up of a lot of people. It's made up of the totality of the Congress. I don't want to speak on what the NEC may not resolve at the end, and then it's like I'm deceiving the platform. But like I said, whatever is the case, either you go left or you go right.
Okay, that's Comrade Dominic Abang, TUC chairman for Uyo Akwa Ibom chapter. He joined us from Lagos. Thank you for your time. I'm sure I'll try to bring you. You know, we've not talked. There are so many things we've not addressed, and I'll try to bring you back on the program. Let's see how we can address some of those issues. Thank you for being on Political Spectrum today.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to being on the studio too, like the barrister.
Oh, wow.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for most of the education you give us on the legal ground.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
Barrister Ito George Bebasi is an author. He's also a legal practitioner. Thank you for being on Political Spectrum today.
It's a pleasure.
So that's how far we can go today on Political Spectrum. We'll be back tomorrow looking at topical political issues. So do well to join us tomorrow. But from us here in the studio, it's goodbye. But if you can, do stay to remain to enjoy the remainder of our programs. Enjoy the rest of your day.